People have been asking my opinion on the Meghan and Harry soap opera that's playing out on Oprah. And I guess I just have a few thoughts. First up, it really doesn't need Piers Morgan to be catastrophically awful just to please his employers at Mail Online because they have a grudge because of what happened in the courts with Mail on Sunday. I don't think that helps anyone, and I don't think it's very consistent with hashtag Be Kind and everything he ever said about Caroline Flack. Number two, I think we have to accept if you put yourself out there, not everyone's going to like you all the time or like everything that you've had to say. It seems that Harry and particularly Meghan only want favourable stuff said about them, and if it's anything else, they don't like it. They don't like it. That's not how this all works. And finally, at a much more human level, I would just hate to be either one of those two. How on earth are they going to find happiness ever, where they've cut themselves off to their whole family, they've been rude and cruel about their grandparents or parents, and they found themselves isolated in a fabricated world that is LA, which is at best an illusion and at worst some sort of horrific vanity exercise. I wonder, you know, if you have these moments with your family that are really lovely, really special, when did you ever feel the need to have an external photographer there to show the world how blissfully happy you were? Last time you were alone with your partner and you were really happy, did you have a camera crew come and record that? And last time you needed to say something to your mum or to your grandma, did you need to have Oprah in to do that? Or did you just pick up the phone and say, look, I'm sorry for all the shit that's happened, can we sort this out? You can think many things of those guys. You can think they're great, you can think they're awful. One thing I can say for certain is that they'll never really be happy, not sure what they were looking for. I don't think they really know themselves.
Happy Tuesday and great news, everybody. I read Prince Harry's Spare so that you didn't have to. Actually, that's a lie. I did not read Prince Harry's. In fact, I paid somebody else to read Prince Harry's Spare so that I didn't have to, so that you didn't have to. And that's honestly the best that I can do, because after crawling through these passages that are in this book, which has just dropped today, I think I'm dying a little bit on the inside. All that and nothing else today.
Okay.
Coming up on Candace Owens. All right, let me tell you why this book deeply upsets me. It deeply upsets me because I, like everybody else in the world, had a fantasy in my head of what the royal family must be like.
Fact.
It was the mystery that we were all invested in. We wanted to believe that, I don't know, they frolic through the woods, that they sit down and they write poetry whenever they have a spare moment, that they have these wonderful discussions and debates at the dinner table. They talk about Mark Twain. We wanted to believe that the royal family was unattainable, that they were better than us, that they were above us, right? The secret, shrouded in secrecy, was the royal family.
Fact.
And then something happened. Prince Harry opened his mouth. And now we know, at least in terms of Prince Harry, that they're basically, I wouldn't even say just like the Kardashians. There are elements of this book that I actually do believe are below what Kim Kardashian would even publicize. I think that there are elements in this book that Kim Kardashian would go, you know what? I don't feel comfortable talking about that. It's a little too private for me. I actually believe that it is beneath the Kardashians to discuss these topics. So I'm going to, I guess, start by giving you some alternative titles for this book. It could have just been called Jealous. I think that's appropriately just hit jealous of who? Willie, his brother. This is literally one log reading of a younger brother who has always been jealous of his older brother, and he's going to tell you a bunch of mundane stories about his older brother that every single person in the entire world that has a sibling has lived through.
Fact.
And yet he thinks it makes him a special snowflake. It could have been called Unbearable, maybe on Unsparable, a play off of Unbearable. Unsparable, and it could just be a story about how this special privileged little snowflake wants you to sit through him.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Whining. Pages and pages, chapters and chapters of him whining about having an incredibly privileged childhood. I think it also should have been entitled middle child syndrome. Now you might be thinking they don't have another sibling, it's just two of them. Yeah, but these are classic symptoms of middle child syndrome that he's displaying. I know because I am a middle child. I know what it's like, and you have an older sibling and a younger sibling, and you feel like nobody hears you, and nobody sees you, and everything's secondhand. Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I think middle child syndrome would have been a good title for this book, but don't let me tell you. Let me jump right into providing you some passages, and let's just start with the prologue of the book, because this is actually in it. Ready? Quote.
Okay.
All at once, something shifted inside of me. I looked at Willie, really looked at him. Maybe for the first time since we were boys. I took it all in, his familiar scowl, which had always been his default in dealings with me. His alarming baldness, more advanced than my own. His famous resemblance to Mummy, which was fading with time, with age. In some ways, he was my mirror. In some ways, he was my opposite. My beloved brother, my arch nemesis.
That doesn't make sense.
How had this happened? His alarming baldness. He's alarmed by his brother's receding hairline. He felt the need to put that in a book because it's petty and it's small to offer commentary on how your brother is losing his hair. And it's petty and it's small to say that you don't even look like mommy anymore because you lost your hair. And petty and small is really what this book is all about. Now, what's incredible is that
Wait for it.
Harry obviously grew up in palaces. So there's just no way that we can connect, right? How many of us have grown up in palaces? How many of us can write a passage in our book about how we grew up in a castle with our brother?
Here it comes.
Castle that had 50 bedrooms. He's talking about the castle in Scotland, which was one of the Queen's favorites. Balmoral had 50 bedrooms, he says in chapter 2, one of which had been divided for me and Willie. Adults called it the nursery. Willie had the larger half with a double bed, a good-sized basin, a cupboard with mirrored doors, a beautiful window looking down on the courtyard, the fountain, the bronze statue of a roe deer buck. My half of the room was far smaller, less luxurious. I never asked why. I didn't care, but I also didn't need to ask. 2 years older than me, Willie was the heir, whereas I was the spare.
Are you serious?
Well, you see, Harry, what happens when you divide a room is that somebody does have to get the less better half. Somebody gets the view, somebody doesn't. And typically, Harry, in case no one has ever told you this.
Hey, y'all, come look at this.
The older sibling always gets the bigger room, the bigger side, the bigger everything, because they're the older sibling. This is not unique to you. It is not because you are the spare. It is not because he is the heir. This happens in households all over the world. In fact, I am one of 3 sisters, and we had an older brother. My older brother, would you believe, us 3 sisters had to share a room while our older brother got his own room growing up? Were we the 3 spares? Is it worthy of putting it into a book? Of course not, but it's not enough because he goes on to describe this dynamic. I was brought into the world in case something happens to Willie. I was summoned to provide backup, distraction, diversion, and if necessary, a spare part.
Are you serious?
A kidney, perhaps. Blood transfusion. A speck of bone marrow. This is the best part. This was all made explicitly clear to me from the start of life's journey and
okay, I'm listening. You have my attention.
regularly reinforced thereafter. Oh, does anybody actually believe that it was made explicitly clear to him that they might need him for a speck of bone marrow? This is not even how it works. Just because you're siblings. Hey, I want to be very clear. Second sibling, you are here for a speck of bone marrow. You're here for a blood transfusion, perhaps. A kidney, perhaps. That's why you're here.
That doesn't make sense.
And we want to make that explicit. Does he even know what explicit means? I mean, that is such a ridiculous lie that any person told him that he existed for a speck of bone marrow. But Go with it, guys. Go with it, because he really needs you to realize that these very mundane things that he's experiencing as the younger brother, it's deep and it's a